Hello and welcome to the oddschecker betting show. This is an Irish horses to follow ahead of the National Hunt season preview. I'm your host, George Elek. As I was last week for our UK National Hunt horses to follow, I'm joined by Andy Holding, and we're delighted to be joined by the resident Irishman on the oddschecker betting show. It is Johnny Ward. Johnny, how are you today? Wearing a really nice outfit, lovely hat, lovely, beautiful jacket, should we call it? Shacket? I don't know what it is.
I don't know, George. I'm a sucker for Instagram online ads. They actually complete. If I'm any guide, like Instagram's definitely making a lot of money from people buying stuff off their ads. And I ordered this coat today. It was the post lady was just about to put a note in the letterbox saying nobody's at home. We've left it at the depot. Just like that, I arrived just in time, and I was like, "That's me." She gave it to me, and I opened it, and it's basically a communist version of what I ordered on Instagram. It doesn't look anything like my original order, but I'm going with it anyway.
You're rocking it. You're wearing it to a wedding this afternoon, aren't you?
Yeah.
It looks like that Jay Blades off, or something that he's wearing off a repair shop. Yeah.
There we
He's
go.
very
That
good
was the look I was going
Graham
for.
Norton show quite recently. I'd recommend watching it. But I think, John, you need to spend less time on Instagram, more time looking after your flowers, because those over your right hand shoulder are looking very, very sad.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed them, but they had a good life, you know.
They had a good life. Okay. As was the case last week, where Andy was joined by Dan Overall, who made his debut on the oddschecker betting show. I've asked the guys to come up with 5 horses each ahead of the National Hunt season. A couple of them have already run. A couple of Andy's in particular have already run so far, but hopefully it will give us 20 horses to go into the season with, into the notebook, and hopefully we'll get some value over the course of the campaign from those. Before we get into it, as ever, I'm going to point you in the direction of the oddschecker app, where you can find the best prices, bookie offers, free bets, place terms, and Andy's tips straight to the app every single morning of racing. So make sure you download the app and make sure you subscribe to the oddschecker YouTube channel, where you can find plenty more preview content throughout the National Hunt season, racing weekly every week as well. Andy and I and Johnny on occasion, Dan on occasion, and others. Quickly, will be back fairly soon, previewing the big races and the big meetings over the course of the jump season. But let's start. Now, I've asked you guys for 5 each. These are going to be Irish trained horses. This morning when I was doing my research, because I like to do a bit of research, I want to know what these horses are up to before I start talking to you about them, I was baffled because 2 of them, from what I could see, were just one had one run under French trainers, and according to the sources I could find, were still being trained in France. Now, this is always exciting. I think given what happened with the likes of Douvan, for example, we know that these horses that Mr. Mullins sometimes purchases from France are fairly popular when it comes to juvenile or novice hurdle markets, when it comes to the Cheltenham Festival, and you guys have come armed with 1 each without even being instructed. So, Johnny, for you, it's a horse called Majbra, who, according to the Racing Post currently, is trained by Daniela Mele. Had 1 race at Auteuil back in early 2023, but that seemingly is no longer the case.
Yeah, I wasn't at Willie's stable visit. There was about 2 weeks ago now, but everyone who's there seemed to think it was quite illuminating anyway. And if you look at the Triumph Hurdle in recent years, it was won by Calixios in 2021. I think Andy was very sweet on the day. It was won by Farclab. It was won by Defi Desoy. It was won by Lossiemouth last year. It's become a race that's actually becoming a lot more sort of geared almost towards National Hunt type horses. Now, it was traditionally sort of a race where you think Alan King is going to have some good thing off the flat or whatever. And generally, Ireland didn't have a great record in it. But in recent years, Willie's won it the last couple of years. He won it with Burning Victory, albeit very lucky in 2020. Obviously, Calixios for Henry de Bromhead. Gordon Elliott won it. Aidan O'Brien won it in recent years. Even Tiger Roll won it. But you get kind of more National Hunt bred types in the race this year. And Blood Destiny, who was kind of very well fancied in the race last year, he's also completely National Hunt sort of type. Now, this horse Marsborough, I just put him in, and it's funny that Andy's also put in. It's funny we both put in horses for the Triumph that people have probably never heard of, but this horse got a very favourable mention at Willie's Stable Tour. Now, his run, he beat a horse called Winston President in Auteuil, and that was in April, and he hasn't been seen since. His pedigree isn't actually anything out of the ordinary. He's by a Japanese sire, but he's 16-1 for the Triumph Church. I just put him in because I actually think the division is going to be very strong this year. I don't know what Andy made of the race that Frata won yesterday, but I thought if that's kind of a sight for the season to come with juvenile hurdles, I think we're going to have some very, very good ones in Ireland, a lot of them off the flat. But this one at this stage seems to be Willie's, at this stage, and I'm speculating a bit, he seems to be his best 3-year-old. And I imagine that he can't be that far wrong in terms of his hype that he's, or how much regard he holds him in. And at 16-1 for the Triumph, given the stable's record in the race, I'm happy to put a fiver on that anyway.
Happy to put a fiver on that. 16-1 best price at the moment for the Triumph. That's been back this morning, so you're not the only one who's caught wind of this. 21-1 this morning. Now best price 16-1 Magborough for the Triumph with Bet365, Paddy Power, Betfair Sportsbook. I mean, obviously this is November, and we have to caveat the tipping things in November for March. So it might be a case of putting Magborough into the notebook, watching his first run for Willie, and then making a decision after that. But I know people do like to fill the anti-post book early. And so if you are that way inclined, then have a look on the Triumph Hurdle on the oddschecker website or app, and you can find the best prices there. And you'll see just above Magborough in the Triumph Hurdle market on oddschecker is Salvatore Mundi, a horse that, according again to the Post, is currently trained by Cotta out in France, who's had one run at Auteuil in April. All sounds fairly familiar, but it's currently seemingly trained by Willie Mullins as well, Andy, and is 16-1 too. That's with Betway for the same race.
Yeah, I certainly have to respect Johnny's information regarding Magborough. Unfortunately, I haven't had enough time to do a little bit of research myself, because what I tend to do is go back and look at all those Auteuil races and particularly time them on their final circuits. I tend to do just the hurdle races because I think the horses that come over to this country, we can get some kind of guide to how good they are. So I haven't done Johnny's. You'll have to excuse me for that, but I did take the liberty to do the one that I'm putting up into this column or onto this list, and that's Salvatore Mundi, and again another horse that's been quoted for the Triumph Hurdle. Similar price to Magborough, around about the 14-1 mark. He's actually got the favourite as well. Horse called Bunting, who is also another horse down from a similar route. But this Salvatore Mundi ran back in April. I think it was actually the meeting after Magborough won at Auteuil in the early part of April. I think Magborough was April the 2nd and this one was April the 18th. But I think there's a bit of substance in this Salvatore Mundi's race. Magborough just won, I think, just an ordinary maiden hurdle, but this one won finished second in a listed hurdle. It was for 3-year-olds that hadn't had a run, and they literally just went straight into a listed race. So it's obviously a race that is fairly sought after by the French trainers. This one was trained by David Cotin, who's obviously very good over there in France. And he got beat, but he got beat by a horse called Segino. Now, I did the circuit times for that respective race in comparison to the other 4 on the card, and it was quite good to see that this 3-year-old race came out the best, which I think is always a fairly good guide when you get a juvenile hurdle the best. Not only that, the juveniles hadn't had a run, so they must be above average. I also did the overall times as well and compared them, and it was the quickest of the 2-mile races on the card. And the front 2 pulled well clear, so I thought, this must be a good race. Now, Segino's gone to Nicky Henderson, so obviously that one's been well sourced by Nicky, who has had a good record with his juveniles over the years. And Willie Mullins has got the second horse, Salvatore Mundi. Now, Salvatore Mundi went out onto the final circuit around about 10 lengths behind Segino. He made up all the ground to get to Segino's quarters, and he actually probably headed him at the last. But the other horse, having saved the energy for being further up the field, just about outstayed him, and I think he won by a length in the end, length and a half. But I came away from that thinking Salvatore Mundi was the best of the 2. So if they both improve for their respective trainers, obviously Nicky Henderson does really well with him over Segino over here, and Willie Mullins does really well with Salvatore Mundi, as he did with Lossiemouth and 1 or 2 others. Then hopefully they'll meet somewhere along the way down the line at Cheltenham. So it'd be interesting to see which way where we go. Salvatore Mundi will probably start off in an ordinary juvenile somewhere, similar to Lossiemouth. Maybe at the Ferry House meeting in a couple of weeks' time. But he's an exciting prospect, and hopefully he'll be one of the better ones from Willie Mullins.
Just as well, George. To mention, Andy was on about trainers there. The horse that I put up was trained by the same trainer who had State Man. So there's probably something in that, and that's probably something that Willie will talk about down the line as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting to get those two kind of similar profile horses, but one from Johnny, kind of a talking horse, I guess, from the stable tour, and one from Andy, who, you know, he's gone back and watched the race from Otoy and been impressed by what he's seen. So a couple there can go double-handed into the Triumph, but as I say, be interesting to see. I mean, normally these bookies aren't taking much of a chance with these French recruits for Mullins when they race from him the first time, but let's keep an eye and see what happens.
Just to put a layer on Fratas's performance as well for Johnny's benefit. Fratas was very impressive yesterday. He made all the running to win at Ferry House. We got a clock in of 55, which is okay. It's a good starting point. You're looking for a good juvenile race to be 60 or upwards. The very, very good ones will do close to 70. That's the sort of like the real golden number really for us with regards to a top class juvenile. You probably get that in the spring juvenile at the Dublin Racing Festival, for instance. Something that Lossiemouth did last year. The best one so far is Burdett Road, who won at Huntingdon the other day, 62. So he sets the standard over here, and Fratas with a 55, just a little bit below it based on that Ferry House run.
We're deviating here, but can I just ask you what Untubber did for the clock?
Which one?
Untubber for Henry de Bromheads?
28, absolute pedestrian. They crawled.
Okay.
But it's very impressive. But yeah, the time was just absolute bobbins.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I actually don't think that's. I think he's going to be a staying type, and
yeah, he looks a chaser, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He'll pull him. He'll be in a race where he can run a number, but yeah, I mean they crawled it.
Interesting.
Yeah, he just basically out sprinted the other horse.
Right, so from a bit of Cheltenham guessing to a Cheltenham winner now, Johnny. Nationale, Supreme winner earlier this year. Barry Connell said before the race he couldn't get beat, and he wasn't. Seemingly running away from Constitution Hill, understandably, and going chasing. Currently 11-4 best price for Yarkle. That's for Paddy Power. Excited to see Nationale over the bigger obstacles.
Yeah, I guess that doesn't seem a great price. I was, but at the same time, I'd be loath to oppose him. I've actually, any time I've met Barry Connell this year at the races on the telly, I tend to ask him about him. And he was at Downpatrick a few months ago now, and he maybe a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, but he said that he's going to go chasing. And at that time, I had an inkling that Constitution Hill wasn't going to go chasing, and he was 5-1 then. So maybe the price has gone in a bit, but at the same time you've a lot more clarity as to what's happening now, and you also have the same connections, good land out for the season. So Marine Nationale has gotten to as far as early November. I again spoke to Barry before the Cork National last Sunday, when he was very bullish about his horse, and he was probably ahead off being completely right. So his horses are in good form, and the festival at Navan that's on, that they've kind of turned into a 2-day, which is, I think it's a good idea. I think it's good for a place like Navan to get people racing and to stay over and all of that. But this is where he's going to make his debut over fences. I think he said he's entering them on the Saturday and the Sunday, and I just think he's a horse that's very, very hard to pick a hole in. When you look at his performance at Ferry House, given his lack of experience and everything that went wrong, was probably right up there with what he achieved in some respects at Cheltenham, when he was a lot more street smart. And I thought it was interesting as well that, like, Facile Vega was hyped so much, and when you saw the two of them kind of coming sort of to the second last, you're like, wow, this is going to be a real race, and he absolutely obliterated him. And I don't know, if he takes the fences, I really don't see what's going to beat him in the Yarkle.
And yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot here because you might not have it in front of you, but how did last year's or this year's, got to stop doing that, feels too early to be talking about Cheltenham. That's why I keep saying last year. How does this year's Supreme time kind of rank? How does Marine Nationale's from memory, or if you've got it there?
Yeah, I mean it was a quality race. The Supreme was up there with the champion hurdle time by Constitution Hill. It just looked a really strong race. We had everything in there that should have been in there. I mean, the English didn't have a great bunch of horses last season, admittedly. I think Tamuris was the shortest price, wasn't he? The Tolworth winner, but he's more of a sort of like a 3 mile chaser, so that put it into perspective. But all the best Irish horses were there. Dark Raven, El Tompa 2, In the Pocket, Diverge, Facile Vega, blah blah blah, and the form has worked out accordingly, hasn't it? We saw the flag well and truly flew for that form towards the back end of the season, with the horses coming out of it and doing well at the Punchestown Festival, for instance. And he won with any amount in hand, beating Facile Vega, who connections were obviously hyping up prior to the race, and probably a little bit disappointed that they didn't win post-race. I actually had Marine Nationale down as one of my 5, but as soon as I saw Johnny's, once we knew each respective list, I finally backed down and let Johnny have Marine Nationale. But yeah, he's a serious talent, and I agree with Johnny. I think if he takes the fences, which hopefully his physique will allow him to, then he's definitely the one in the Arkle category at the moment. Great
stuff. Yeah, 11-4 best price currently, favourite for the Arkle. Andy, over to you. An intriguing selection, this one. My trump card. One race for Gordon Elliott, came forth in a maiden hurdle, not seen for a year. What caught your eye, or what has caught your eye?
Yeah, I've been waiting for him to run for a little while now. He went in my tracker. I tried to dig a few horses out that were still in my tracker, and I thought, that my trump card's in there. And I read Gordon Elliott's stable tool guide the other day when it came out, and he was one of the horses that he put in there as a dark one. So I thought, okay. The 2 and 2 sort of added together. Ran an eye-catching race in behind Grange Clare West in that good main hurdle. I think it was was it Nace or Navan? I think it was at Nace. It was a good time figure, and Grange Clare West did really well throughout the course of the season. He wasn't quite top class, but he's a good sort of listed stroke grade 3 horse that I think will do well over fences this season. Certainly built like a chaser. And my trump card, he's along the same lines. I don't think we'll see the best of him, perhaps maybe even this time next year when we're doing this podcast and talking about horses when they go with fences. But I think he'll have a good season, novice hurdling. How high he'll go, I don't know. But he's kind of like good enough for Gordon Elliott, then he's certainly good enough for me. And he certainly wasn't knocked about in that Nace main hurdle to finish a never near a 4th. He'll have to improve his jumping a little bit. That's the one thing when I watched the video back. He was a little bit sketchy over his hurdles. Hopefully we'll see him out soon. He was due to run at Down Royal at the reformed meeting this weekend, but they've decided not to go there. Maybe give him a little bit more time. But he's definitely one to watch either in a bumper stroke, novice hurdle, and then follow his progress.
Do you think there's a chance, given he went off 8-1 on debut, and that finishing 4th, there's a chance we might get a price when we do see a reappearance? Yeah,
I'm trying to pick horses here that are not absolutely obvious. It was easy to go down the sort of a lot of them that have already had a run. I've got several that I could have put in that have already had a run and we know a little bit about. But I thought this one was a fairly dark one. The fact that he was not flagged up first time means that he's a little bit under the radar. So yeah, you could be right. And obviously comes from sexy connections, but it doesn't mean to say that he was expected first time out, or he's a superstar in the making. But yeah, I just like the way he ran. I think he's got a good engine, and hopefully we'll hear a bit more about him than just the one run last season.
I had to look him up there. That's a great shout. And he costs, just looking him up, he costs 230 grand as well. So he obviously looks okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, fingers crossed he makes the grade anyway. What grade that'll be, I don't know, but hopefully we'll see.
Lovely stuff.
Him in a decent race at some stage this season.
My trump card, possibly the trump card of this podcast for Andy. On now to Johnny's third selection. And those of you who listened to or watched last week's show, Dan maybe didn't quite get the memo that was a UK horses to follow, because he put up Mirazur West, who is a Mullins bumper winner. And Johnny, you liked what you saw as well.
Yeah, Andy might be a bit more illuminating on this, because I'm kind of going a little bit on just the visual impression here, but also the fact that this horse it's the pedigree of the horse as well, that he's a brother to Fernie Hollow. The dam has just produced like 1, 2, 3. She's already produced 7 winners. 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. Fernie Hollow be the best, but as you know, he's not the most amenable at times in terms of getting him to settle. And David Casey's spoken about this horse. He said he's just far more chilled out than his brother, and the form of the race at Nace, you could say, well, it's been slightly let down since, and you're kind of speculating, but he was sent off 1-2. I just love the way he did it. He basically never came out of a canter, and I think with him, he came from point to point. So maybe they will have options in terms of the trip that they go novice hurdling with, but he's a beautiful looking horse as well, and I think I'd be inclined to think they'd go down the route of the Supreme and kind of maybe try to win it with a horse that that stays well, as they've done that in the past, going back to Champagne Fever and all those horses. She's owned by JP McManus, which is interesting, obviously, because Fernie Hollow's in different colours, but he just looked really, really good. I just loved the way he went through the gears, kind of. And I'm prepared to give him, if the time, I don't know what was the time extraordinary, but he was certainly valued for more than he won by. And he just looks very exciting. And the way they talk about him relative to his brother is really notable as well. So I imagine he'll be in the Supreme. So that's the kind of way, if you're looking for a lucky 31 to change your life, that's the way I'd be going, I suppose.
Great stuff. Yeah, Mirazur West. We heard from Andy last week. And I think I'm right in saying, Andy, that not worth getting too worried, but the speed figures at least weren't quite as compelling as the visual impression.
Yeah, that was it really. Yeah, when I talked about it with Dan, he didn't do anything on the clock that'd make you stand up and take notice. But yeah, visually he was really impressive. You only really tell, as we do with that horse of Henry de Bromhead's, which Johnny mentioned, once they get into a better race, how good they can be. You can't just judge him on one run and say, okay, he's got speed figure 45. That's how good he is. I mean, he can only go as fast as what the other horses allow him in the race. So let's see him in a better race, and then we can take a view then. But yeah, he did look very good when he won on debut.
Yeah, did look good visually. We'll see if he can build on that on the clock next time. Limerick Lace now is your third selection here, Andy, for Gavin Cromwell. Won a mare's chase last month at Clonmel. Consistent type.
Yeah, she's not really a dark one in many respects, because she's already had a season over fences, and she wasn't quite good enough, against the likes of Allegoria de Vassy last season. But I've always actually liked this mare. I think the key thing about her, which I really do like and has impressed me, is her jumping. She's a very, very slick jumper, very safe. She never ever looks like falling at any stage. And I was really impressed with her at Clonmel on her seasonal appearance. She never came out of third gear. She jumped really well again in bottomless ground. I always think that's a good idea. If you go around Clonmel and you jump well, as Johnny will know, it's a hard track to get your feet out the ground. The grass is always long. Those two in the home straight, when they go uphill, they almost have to heave themselves over. You see a lot of horses fall at the second last and the last. And she was really good there, quite spring-heeled actually, and she had a lot left in the tank. But it was a time figure, even though it was only a small field, they went a good gallop, and I thought, God, she's improved since last year. So I didn't really want to leave her out, because I think she'll pay her way and be a horse to follow when she doesn't take on the absolute top class. I mean, she might make her way up to being, a Grade 1 mare, and maybe something like the Cheltenham Festival, because that sort of mare's division has only really got 3 or 4 absolute top quality horses in it, and then the rest of them are much of a muchness. So I think there's definitely room for a Limerick Lace. And the programme book in Ireland really does cater for horses like that. There's lots of races for her to run in. And of course, we know Gavin Cromwell's not afraid to bring them over here as well, like he's done on many occasions. I think Final Orders have been over here a couple of times just to use him as a guide, and several other handicappers. Let's be clear about it. Was another one I kind of toyed with, but he's already had 2 runs. He's done a couple of exceptionally good times, like he did at Cork. I think he's already top class, and we'll see him maybe in the Drim more, but I didn't want to put him on because, with a horse who's run a couple of times over fences, I'm not really telling you something you don't already know. But with Limerick Lace, I do think we'll get a really good season out of her this season, and she could be a little bit of a money spinner, not quite the top class.
Limerick Lace there, one to follow during the season, albeit the admission that maybe not quite top class there from Andy. 2 more to come, and one who is certainly top class, and a horse we spoke a lot about, the 3 of us, over the course of last season, is Lossiemouth. Won the Triumph, of course, reversing the form with Carla Marceau. Followed that up with a 4-year-old champion hurdle win at Punchestown. Currently 3-1 favourite for the mares, Johnny, and a horse that you were very keen on for throughout last season, and clearly if there were some concerns over that defeat at Leopardstown, put those to rest at the back end of last season.
Yeah, that was obviously a bit of a mess, and these things happen. But she's by Great Pretender. She's just that kind of profile I was talking about earlier, where you end up running the Triumph with really a horse that's not off the flat, national owned horse. And it looks like kind of connections have looked to France for these sort of 3-year-olds quite a bit in recent times. And to be honest, like I think the 2 mile hurling division this year is going to be very boring. Like if you're into Constitution Hill winning in a canter every day, like that's fine, and you can marvel in virtuosity, but like it's not going to be especially interesting. And what's worse is that he's not going to be coming over to Ireland, so that'll be left to sort of Willie Mullins to kind of just do whatever he wants to do there, have the horses that won't take on Constitution Hill until Cheltenham. And I know this has been a kind of a quandary for him in terms of what do you do. Like, I think Willie looks at the program and says we've a load of races in Ireland, we don't need to take on Constitution Hill. But anyway, I suppose the point I'm getting at here is Lossiemouth is not going to rock up in the champion hurdle. Absolutely zero chance of that. I would have thought she's going to run in the mare's hurdle. And I have to say, for Zarak the Brave, for his age and relative inexperience, I just thought it was a hell of a performance to win the Galway hurdle. Not only did he win, but his attitude was outstanding. And like basically Lossiemouth sort of made him look kind of, if not second rate, she was way better than him at Punchestown. She's only had 5 starts for Willie Mullins. She's just an outstanding type of horse. She was superb at Cheltenham. She really was, the way she travels. And I'm sure they're half excited about going chasing with her. But if they don't do that, and you do wonder about, she'd still only be like 5 this time next year if they'd want to go down that route. I can't see her deviating from the mare's vision. Willie places his horses, to suit basically himself in terms of the stable, and the owners generally accede to Willie's kind of requests as to where they should go. She's not going to be taking on Constitution Hill, and she will, in my view, likely take an awful lot of beating then in the mare's race.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Lossiemouth, one of those who won't be taking on Constitution Hill, but certainly with the mares as an option, 3-1 best price as it stands at the moment. So, yeah, one to obviously keep on side with as we go forward throughout the season. Andy, no surprises at all to see Blizzard of Oz making up your list, given how sweet you are on Florida Dreams, as we heard last year. Blizzard of Oz finishing second behind Florida Dreams in the Aintree bumper.
Yeah, Florida Dreams is a bit disappointing actually not to win there on Saturday. But I think he bumped into a good horse of Lucinda Russell's, and the race didn't run to suit. So those that listen to the other podcast, don't give up with Florida Dreams. He just wants a more strongly run race. It was a bit of a crawl and sprint, which, as I say, didn't play into his strengths. The horse that beat it, that finished second to Aintree, as you alluded to, Blizzard of Oz, goes on the list. I had a bit of a quandary here whether to put Factor File on there. It was going to be Factor File, Blizzard of Oz, the 2 horses that finished second respectively in the champion bumpers at the big festivals. Of course, Factor File second to the good horse of the Kylies. And I think he goes straight for fences, doesn't he, John? I think they're going to bypass hurdles with him. I think that's quite significant, that they think it's almost a wasted year, really, messing around over hurdles on a horse who's got a bit of size and physique. I think we'll see him in races like maybe the Turners, a 2.5 mile race, or even RSA if 1 or 2 of his horses don't make the grade. But I suppose Gaelic Warriors, he's ready-made 3 miler. But getting back to Blizzard of Oz, I thought he showed a lot of pace for a horse that ostensibly wants 2.5 miles. I think Willie's been on record to think he does want a little bit further. He's definitely a chasing type. So I'll see him as developing along the Ballymore route. Obviously, their stable won it last year with the same colours, Impede Pass. They have Gaelic Warriors while they're chasing man. So it's a division that they're really strong in. So with Factor File, kind of like their preeminent bumper horse going over fences, I thought, well, this 2.5 mile category, which I think he'll end up being in, will be up for grabs, as it were. I'm not sure what price he is for the Ballymore. Actually, it's remiss of me not to have looked into check, but like I say, without Factor File there, he looks the ready-made candidate. So Blizzard of Oz, a horse who certainly be good enough to win a 2 mile hurdle, but I think we'll see him better over 2.5. Is my 4th horse for this list.
So a selection each from the guys, and Andy's just mentioned Johnny's 5th selection, Factor File, finished second in the champion bumper, finding a dream to share too good on 2 separate occasions, going straight to chasing Intendant Nace on Sunday. Interesting, this one, Johnny.
Yeah, and on a dream to share, the vibes about him would slightly worry me. Just if you were backing him for the Supreme or that, which is the race that he'd go for, I'd nearly just hold fire until he actually runs, which may or may not be at Christmas. So we'll see. Like, it would be disappointing. I love the fact that John Kiley at 86 is a horse that's so good. But on the fact of file, obviously he did finish second to him in the two bumpers that he ran in and against him. But like, to be honest, I think a lot of horses completely waste their time over hurdles. I mean, he's 6 going on 7, which is clearly in their thought process. But like, I don't see why age should be a factor in it. And I think if you're a chaser, a lot of horses who are, if you're going to be of a certain level over hurdles, you're going to be better over fences. Actually, sometimes I don't really get the point of hurdling at all. And this is an anomalous one for Willie Mullins in that he's gone. Trying to think, maybe Miss That did something similar, but not that many instances where he just skipped hurdling altogether. And this is what they're doing with this horse, which is obviously, as I say, is unusual. But just the way Willie spoke about him as well. He's another horse that's a stable tour that. There's a horse I really like. I thought he ran a cracker. He could go novice hurdling, but I think we'll go novice chase. He's a really jumping type. At his age, he might as well go jumping. He has everything to be a chaser, temperament, size, scope, and all that. So for me, that's exciting. And I mean, his nephew Emmett is certainly one who likes to kind of rock the boat a bit and do stuff that maybe you wouldn't consider normal, like winning the Grand National with a horse of ranking experience and all that. And maybe Emmett's actually teaching Willie how to do things that are a little bit abnormal here, which is going chasing with a horse who hasn't gone hurdling. But this horse has loads of ability. By polyglot, it would have been the sire of Don Pauly. And I see he's actually a half brother to a French winner as well, out of a jumper in France. So he's all the pedigree to do what to chase basically. And yeah, I think he's going to be exciting, very exciting.
Yeah, really exciting indeed. Factifile going chasing. Johnny's 5th and final horse to follow. Andy, your final one, exciting and affordable Fury, finished 2nd in the Albert Bartlett at a massive price, 150 to 1, but has proven in his next 2 starts that was no fluke.
It's actually Affordale Fury. I've made that mistake.
Making this mistake for, like, it wasn't The Simpsons where Homer's like, I was calling her Miss Crandall all these years, when it was Crabapple. I was like this, Andy. It was only the last time this horse actually ran in Galway I knew I was wrong.
Yeah. I've only just found out, to be fair.
It's really weird as well, because you're not the only ones, but several bookmakers have actually quoted 2 horses. They've actually got Affordable Fury, and most of the firms have got Affordale Fury. So the ones that got Affordable Fury, that's the same horse, by the way. So don't make the same mistake there and back the wrong horse.
Also, can I just to protect myself, what I've done here is I've copied and pasted the list that you sent me, Andy. So you've absolutely thrown me.
You know what it's like. You got to put Affordale and it comes up Affordable, and there you go. So we're all guilty. Either way, Noel Mead's Chaser, I think, has got a really bright future off the back of what we saw not only last season as a hurdler, but on his debut over fences at Galway. I always think Galway, as Johnny will know, is quite a good test for a novice first time out. It's a bit uphill and down dale. Those 2 in the dip really.
Love the 2 in the dip, Andy. I actually wish more racecourses had them.
Yeah, it's almost like watching. Yeah, it's almost like what was it? The Devil's Dyke, was it? It's Hickstead, when they used to jump the 2. There was 3 rails, wasn't there? They used to jump the one, go down into a dip, jump the other, and come out the other side. I think it's called the Devil's Dyke, and Galway's equivalent to the Devil's Dyke is those 2 in the dip. You actually kind of like, if you meet one on the right stride, you don't actually meet the other one on the right stride. That they come at interchangeable stride patterns, so you have to shorten up to jump the second one. I've never seen a horse go ping ping on both of them. And he was really neat. He was in and out the boards. He danced over the last 2. He jumped the ditches well down the back. He looked like winning actually further than his official margin suggested in the end, because I think, to be fair to the second, Favori de Champs, he battled on really strongly to keep him honest on the running. I actually think the second will hear big things of him as well, maybe more in handicaps further down the line, or maybe even further. But I think Affordable Fury's already rubber-stamped himself as a 3-mile chaser in the making. His form was all out of 3 miles last year, called second to Stay on Fay in the Albert Bartlett. He got readily brushed aside by Gaelic Warrior, who I think is probably the preeminent 3-mile novice for Ireland last season. I think he's definitely the one to beat in that category. But Affordable Fury, he's at least put himself in the shop window. And he was one of probably, I could say, several I could have mentioned in this category. Affordale Fury, the other two being Let's Be Clear About It, which I mentioned. And there was a horse of Gavin Cromwell's. I don't know if Johnny saw him the other day. I Know the Way You're Thinking, who finished second to Imagine in a really high-class beginner's chase at Fairy House. I'm just sort of layering this a bit and adding this one as well. It was won by Imagine, but the time figure was very, very good. And I think I know you either thinking the way he finished off suggests that he'll be better next time out. But
Very
he could have
close
been another...
relative of Limerick Lace, no less.
Absolutely, yeah, the two are intertwined. So I've gone for Affordable Fury. I could have, like I said, put Let's Be Clear About It, or I'll know the way you're thinking on there. But I think he's already proven that he's a top class horse in the making.
Let's be clear about it, though. What is the horse's actual name?
Andy,
have I got that wrong as well?
Is it how do you actually pronounce it? Is it Affordale?
Affordale is what.
It is Affordale, yeah. Have I called him Affordable Fury again?
I think you have.
Oh, jeez. It's Affordale anyway, yeah.
Affordable is what I've heard it's called. There we go. That is the 5 to follow from each of the guys over from Horses Trained in Ireland. I'll quickly run through them before we let you guys go. Johnny's got Madgeborough, Nationale, Mirazur West, Lossiemouth and Fact to File. For Andy, it's Salvatore Mundi, My Trump Card, Limerick Lace, Blizzard of Oz and Affordale Fury. You can find all of those up on the oddschecker site, whether it's the Cheltenham Festival or when they are due to run. So make sure you look at those. And we'll be back, as I say, to preview the racing over the course of the National Hunt season. So do subscribe to the Oddschecker podcast. So it's the Oddschecker YouTube channel where you can find all the Oddschecker betting shows and plenty more preview content up on there. Thank you to Andy. Thank you to Johnny. Johnny, have a great wedding. Not your wedding, I don't think, but whoever's wedding you're going to. We'll speak again soon. Please do ensure that you're gambling responsibly and enjoy the weekend's racing.